trip to Ecuador. And we would go to the city of Quito, which is the capital. And while we were there, we were dealing with some missionaries that we would do what we call the Happy Feet ministry. And we would take scores, hundreds of pairs of shoes and go to different villages and churches in those villages. And the pastors knew we were coming. These were, of course, places way out, and some in this inner city and of Quito. And we would go there and we'd spend a day washing their feet and putting on new socks and shoes. A ministry that is dear to my heart because I think it was to Jesus. And we would do it there, and we would minister for about a week and a half while we were there, and going to all these different churches and in the shoe ministry. And sometimes we even helped out in the soup kitchen. There was this missionary was involved with a soup kitchen, and we helped build it. Our church helped build that soup kitchen while I was there. Well, needless to say, the year I was there, my first year going there, the missionary that was in charge was an American missionary, and he went a little wayward, I'm just going to say that. And come to find out, there were some things that just weren't right. And so we decided to pull our support from him and our support from that area, that ministry. And we were seeking after someplace else. We felt we needed to be in Ecuador, but we were seeking after God's will. And this is going to lead into what I'll be speaking about this morning. So I was sitting at my desk one day, and as a children's pastor, I'm always seeking material that will encourage my kids. And so I was online and I was looking, and I found this curriculum, and I'm like Miss Wilma, I read everything about it because I just don't take it at face value. I want to see who's writing it, I want to see who's producing it, I want to see where it's being used, and so forth and so on. So in the back of this article, it had places that their curriculum was being used around the world. And so I look on the map, and they had one place in Ecuador that was being used, this material. And one place, and that's it. Out of all of Ecuador, only one person was using this material. So I clicked on it, and it showed me a link to a orphanage that was there in the jungle. It's right at the edge of the jungle, right inside the jungle, but at the edge. And it's a place called Shell. Myra is the name of this little town. It's a small town. It's not very well known in some areas, but in our ministry it is, because that's the area that Nate Saint and Jim Elliott and those other three warriors for Christ sought after to take the gospel into the Warani nation, and that's where they lived, was in this little town. And so I'm reading about the ministry of a lady by the name of Patty Sue. And Patty Sue has only been in Ecuador, I guess, about 12, 13 years now. But back then, it was very young. And they were just in the process of getting into Shell and doing some things there in Shell with the orphanage. Patty Sue was a lady that served time in the military. Her husband had left her, and she never remarried. And she's a wonderful lady, and she fell in love with some missionaries, and she knew when she got out of the service, she was serving at a Baptist church down in Mississippi, and she decided to see what God would have for her. So she visited Ecuador. And so she felt that God was leading her to go to Quito and to share her ministry there of teaching people how to repair wheelchairs, of all things. And so, and there's a need there for that, because everything down there is pretty, backwards as far as progress goes. But she went there to do just that. And her military money that she received from the military, her retirement, was pretty much her means of supporting herself while there. So when she got there, Patty Sue, they came and somebody offered her a child. They said, would you take care of this child? And she has, and today she still has that child that she was given, the very first one, and then she was given another. And so someone offered her a position if she would come to Shell, that they would give her a house to stay in, and take care of these children. If she would come here and take care of some children that they had. So of course Patty Sue packed her bags, and feeling led by God to do this, she went to Shell, and where she is today. And this has blossomed from the one child to today she has 82.
Wow.
And all these children, and you'll see some of their faces next week, or the 23rd when I'm back with you. Miss Wilma's going to show a video of my last trip. It's just a song, and it just shows some of the children and some of the team members that went there, and us interacting with the kids and the Waranis and whatnot. But she is a marvelous lady. I emailed her, and she came right back to me in an email, and I'm thinking, this could be where God wants us to serve. So I talked to my pastor, and that day, and he started praying. He and I started praying together. Well, this is how God works, folks. God had his definite plan for us to be there. I was sitting at my desk again, and I got a call from my wife. And we were planning a trip to go visit Patty Sue and the kids and see what this was all about, our next mission trip. So I get a call, and she says, where in Ecuador are you going? I just told, there's a man here that's being my wife works at the dialyzing place up in Gentry, and she dialyzes patients. And she said, there's a man here on dialysis, and he wants to know where you're going. So I said, well, and she said, I just told him Quito, because that's all she knew where I go. And she said, and I said, no, it's Shell. Tell him it's Shell. So she said, okay, I'll tell him it's Shell. So it wasn't very long thereafter, she called me back. And she said, you're not going to believe this, but the man laying here on this bed that I'm dialyzing is from Shell. And I said, you got to be it. Well, I hung up the phone and ran up. I work in an office with two other men. And we got an upstairs where I got some stuff. And I ran upstairs to give God the glory and have a good cry. Because when stuff like this, I can't help myself. I just cry. And so I went upstairs and had a good cry because I knew that God was in this thing. And I knew that this was a start. So I called Pastor that right then. And he started coming. Me and him just had a good time together on the phone. And then he just took this from that point. And he and I has just been forever thankful for this man. Well, come to find out, I went to meet the man, and he was a teacher from the Nate Saint School there in Shell, and a missionary that lived and was from Gap, PA.
Wow.
now this is God working, folks,
Right.
and this is knowing God's will. So his hand was all over this. So his mother and his brother is a missionary in Colombia, and he was a missionary in Ecuador, and he was on dialysis, and so and then to beat it all, I said, Lord, wouldn't it be nice if he would be there when we go back? And of course, dialysis is not big in Ecuador,
Right.
and so that's why he was here. They were checking his wife out, and she became his wife that he met at Moody Bible Institute when he was there at college. They were both there at school, and both wanted to be missionaries. Both ended up in Ecuador, where she came from. She came from Ecuador. Her parents were both missionaries in Ecuador. She was raised in Ecuador. Both sets of grandparents, her mom's mom and dad and her dad's mom and dad, were both missionaries in Ecuador. And now this is a God thing. And that's how they met, and they ended up going back. And at 60, I think he told me he has 67, 68% of his support, but he's been serving there ever since.
Wow.
You know, he didn't wait for 100%. He just knew God wanted him there and went.
Right.
And so the means that they live is very slim, but they're there. His wife ended up being, which is very rare, and that can only be a God thing. ended up being compatible to give him a kidney.
Wow.
And I even asked, I said, what if he did, how did you know she said, I'm his husband, I'm his wife. I thought that would be just okay, and I would give him my kidney and everything would be all right. But to be a match is very rare.
Yeah.
So she ended up giving him a kidney, and he was recouped and ready to go back, and went back a week before we went back, and was there when we got there to show us around Shell. So we got to Shell and fell in love with Patty Sue. And Patty Sue is a pioneer missionary that probably takes after some old-timey missionaries that I read about and love and have loved over the years. She lives by faith. When she went there, she tells me every time, she says, Pastor Mike, she says, I came here on a $1,000 a month budget. She said, my budget now is $42,000 a month. And she says, I do not know where the money comes from.
Wow.
Except by God.
That's
She
right.
lives by faith.
Yes.
The mission is run by faith. Everything she receives is by faith. And one thing when I investigate and look into missions, the missionaries and themselves, I want to see prosperity when I go back. If it's not growing, then something's wrong. They're there for the wrong reasons, maybe. But I mean, even if it doesn't have to be a major growth, but you would see some kind of prosperity in what they're doing while they're in the field. And so, you're supporting them. And so every time, I've been there 4 times, and every time I go back, I've seen improvement there at the home, and there at the mission, and there where the children are staying. The children's lives are being changed. These are children that are not wanted, that she takes in. These are children that mainly, most of them come out of the jungle. And in the years past, if a child was maybe born with cleft lip, the chief of the village would say, tell the mother, never the father, tell the mother, take that child, that baby, and leave it in the jungle and let the animals take care of it. And the mother would walk into the jungle with that little baby in her arms, her little baby, and lay it down somewhere and walk away. And now that Patty Sue's there, and they've heard about her, they're leaving them on her doorsteps, and leaving them there. And she's taken, right now she's at her max, until something else can be done to build her a home. She has a place that has been built, and all these kids stay together. Some are being kept by missionary families, and so forth and so on, but she has 82. Many of them are physically handicapped, but she takes on all the physical handicap. If a child needs special attention, there's this one little girl, Naomi, and she was a little baby. She received her about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and she was just a newborn baby. And she was born with some problems down below, and so they took some intense surgery, and they had to take her to Quito and do the surgery. Well, Patty Sue took on all that, all the bills that come along with it. She takes on those bills, and she pays them off by faith. The doctors are paid by faith. And so, you know, this is a lady that lives her life, and I'm glad that God linked us together. But while there, and just to share, while there meeting Patty, I met some marvelous other missionaries. I met the gentleman that is in charge, deals with the Warani, and he actually is lives there with them. And he has a home in Shell, and he has a home there. He has 3 kids. They go with him when he goes into the jungle and stays. They stay in a little hut that was built for them with the Warani. The Warani, if you know the story, is the Waranis that killed Nate Saint, Jim Elliott, and the other 3 missionaries back in 1956. And then Elizabeth Elliott and Rachel Saint, along with Dayuma. Dayuma was a Warani that was chased out of the jungle because they killed her father, and she saw her parents killed. Excuse me. And she came out of the jungle and was sold into slavery and so forth and so on until she became to Shell. and met up with the missionaries, and they took care of her, and they learned some things from her. And she went into and led Elizabeth Elliot and Rachel Saint back into the jungle after her brother and her husband were killed, and to befriend the Waorani, and actually was instrumental in leading them to Christ and this village. And I've been to the village where they live, and several times I've met with Huey. The picture I have on the table is me and Huey. Huey was one of the killers. There's only 3 left that are alive today, and he is one of them. And they have a church in Puyo, next to Shell, that missionaries from Colombia, and Peru. He actually started this church, and the Waorani go there. It's a Waorani church, and so we go there every time. But these are artifacts from there. And these were handmade by the ladies and men of the jungle, and everything there is either that's been made is out of the bark of a tree, out of a leaf of a tree, and everything is sewn. They have no means of buying yarn or anything like that. Everything that you buy, the money goes to that family that made it, and they buy medicine with it and take care of their family. That's what they do. They live off the land. They live in the jungle, they live off the land, whatever they hunt, they eat, or whatever, and that's whatever, really, to be honest. And if it's a monkey, it's a monkey, if it's a boar, it's a boar, if it's a fish, it's a fish, whatever, but they eat it. But all this stuff, this is a blowgun. It's a miniature blowgun, but it's a replica of the big long blowgun that they would use in the jungle. And this is all handmade. It's even got the little darts in here that you would shoot through a blowgun, and those are actual darts, and these are just instruments that they would use. This is a fishing net that was hand woven by one of the Waorani ladies that you would just take up to the river and go like that and hopefully get some fish out of it. This is not Waorani. This was made by a fella in another village and in another town, actually. But it's very primitive. I've been to his place up on the side of the hill, and he'll take a block of balsa wood. You guys are like this. He takes a block of balsa wood, and he will shave it down, and then he takes a butcher knife and sits there, and he chops at this thing till he makes what he wants to create. And with a butcher knife, with his hands, no tools, and then he'll hand paint it, and sand it down, hand paint it, and he'll bake it in a little primitive oven that he has, and sell them there for really nothing. But that's the only thing on this table that's not Waorani. There's bracelets here that they made, a bow and arrow, and these are miniature spears. I have a long spear. I was going to bring it, but I have a part of it that needs to be repaired, and I was afraid it'd fall off. But these are miniature spears that they make here in the jungle, and they would actually use. Spears just a little bit longer than this would have been used to kill the missionaries. This is what they were killed with by the Waorani. But these fellas are marvelous people. I've met them all. I got to do puppets with them this time while there, and I left them with a set of puppets to use in ministry there in the church. That's one of the things I do every time I go back. But I covet your prayers with Patty Sue. If you go on a website, you can go to Casa de Fe, Casadefa, or F-E, and Casa de Fe, and it'll come up, and you can look and you can see the children, you can see her work. It's got a bio about her, but I covet your prayers with her because we minister with her. Our church has set up, Pastor Phillips and I set up an account to where the second time we went down, we set up an account in Maryland to where we give all of our money, and any money comes in for Casa de Fe, we put it in there. And then I took her a debit card that she can actually use in Puyo, and she debits the money right out. She gets the money direct. Right. And many times she'll sit there and she'll text me on my phone, and I'll be sitting there and I get to, Mike, how much money I got in the account? And I'll look and I'll type it up and I'll text her back. And she was going after medicine. She goes after medicine once a month, and to a little town called Banos. And she goes there to pick up all of her medications for the kids for a whole month. And she texted me and she said, Mike, I'm leaving right now to go get the medicine. How much money do I have? And so I'm looking, and finally it came up and I found out how much she had. And she had $1,487.35 or something like that in it. And so I texted her, told her how much she had. She said, I'm there now with the medicine on the counter, and I'll get back with you. So it was about an hour later, I get this text message, and she said, Mike, I just wanted you to know the medicine came to $1,413.35. And she said, I just wanted you to know. And she's praising the Lord. And she said, and I texted her back, and I said, well, at least you left enough in there to keep the count open. So she has a marvelous ministry there, and it's a well-deserved. Since we were there, we've helped build, one year we helped work on the school. She has a full-time school and staff of missionaries that come from here and there that teach the kids. So she has a school on the premises. She has a workshop for the guys that are there to minister and building whatever they need to build, but they need homes. They need homes for the kids because she wants to take more, but she can't. I'll give you one instance of one little child. Now this is child after child after child after child, the same story. But this one day I was sitting at my desk, and I get this text from one of the teachers. That's an American girl, and she sent a thing out, and I'm sitting there, and I open it, and I read the first sentence, and I close out the email, because I knew where it was going. It was about a kid, and I was at the office, and I said, I'm not reading this now, because I'll be running upstairs. And I always do on the stories about the kids. And so that night, I opened the email, and I sat there and read it with tears just flowing. I couldn't even get through the whole letter. But this teacher was explaining how that day that she was teaching a class to some of the girls, they got done, and I pulled the police, the local police. And they get out of the car, and they have this little boy about this tall. And they, of course, they had no idea how old he is. They thought maybe 3, maybe 4. And he's so puny and skinny, and they're bringing him in, to leave with them. And this little boy, they took him. Patty Sue said, yes, she'll take him. They called Patty Sue. Patty said, yeah, we'll take him. And so they have to bathe him and get him new clothes and whatnot. He was filthy. And they took his clothes off of him to bathe her and one of the tias that work there. She has, I think, 56 tias that are local, that are caregivers of the children with her. Round the clock care. And she has to pay for it. And so they have to pay them to do the job. And so one of the tias and this teacher took this little boy and bathed him. And they took off his clothes, and she said, I broke down in tears. She said he had burn marks from a cigarette all over his body. He had cut marks where somebody had taken a knife or a machete and cut his little feet and stuff. And when they found him, the police found him, he was in the Puyo market. It was a Saturday. He was there at the market all day by himself, walking around trying to find food off the ground. And whatever he could do. And and a lady had saw him and watched him all day playing and trying to find food and called the police, and they brought him there. They have him. They don't know who his mother and father are. They have no idea. And in Ecuador, when they have to investigate. Children just cannot be readily adopted there because they have to make sure they have no family. Right. And it's a long investigational process. But this little boy, nobody's claimed him as of yet, but he's became my hero. I have his picture, as a matter of fact, that I carry in here, and I'll share with you. I'll share you what he looks like now. But this is my little hero, and I feel that he'll probably be a preacher one day.
Yeah.
But anyway, but this is him. This is little Samuel, and he's not the same Samuel that was when they took him in. But this is little Samuel, and little Samuel is. He drew me a picture. I have it in here, and I support him. They are taking support on some of these children. If you ever wanted to support a foreign child, I can give you 100% guarantee that the money that you support this child with, or a child with, will go to that child. I assure you, 100%. I've been there. I know what it's like. I'm very careful about sending money to these things on TV. Very careful, like you. And but this one I know is for sure. On their website, there's a place that you could sponsor a child for $45 a month. They're only taking 3 supports. 45 from 3 different supporters up to 3 times per child until they're all supported. And there's about 12 that have yet to be supported in any type of support. But Samuel's mine. And he's my little buddy. Every time I go, he remembers me. These people down there are something about remembering who you are. I walk into the village of the Urbanis and they know I've been there. And they remember me from the last time, and they hug you, and they treat you like family. And little Samuel, I was there this time, and they have a big gate that the kids play in around the back of the one where they stay. And I was walking around back with 2 of the ladies to go up on a hill and work. And his little Samuel saw me, and he ran over across this yard and dove up over this fence and grabbed me by my shirt and pulled himself up till he was around my neck. And he just squeezed me as tight as he could. And Samuel's not little anymore. Samuel has, because the first time I ever went, I said, Patty, tell me about Samuel. And she said, Samuel he's adapted well. She said he'll eat everything on his plate, and then when he's done, he'll look and make sure nobody's leaving anything, and if they do, he'll go eat it too. But when they found little Samuel, another thing that disgusted the girls, you could see the maggots crawling inside his stomach, pushing out on his stomach. That's how bad it was. And they had to take him directly to the hospital and get him cleansed. But this boy is just something. And the girl that first took him in there and bathed him and sent me the letter, she's still there. And so her and I sort of share Samuel together. And she'll say, Samuel, it's all right to be with Pastor Mike. And she knows I love him just as well. But, these children are something to me. They're amazing. Each one's a story. Each one's a story that you and I have never lived.
Right.
And these kids that are playing in here, and the one back there a little bit, they have no idea. They would not, Lord willing, they'll never have to face what these children have faced. Right. And they're my heroes of the modern world. They really are. Because Patty Sue, this would be, and I'll say this out front now, this would be a good thing to support Miss Wilma to go with me next January. And she'll leave her heart there, I promise. But we're going back January the 10th through January 24th is our next, I booked it while I was there, and I put it on the calendar. And Lord willing, I'll be going back. And this time while I was there, and I'll close it to a few things, we were at the Puyo Church, and Yui was there, and we went back to the Nate Saint house. While we were there this time, we always shared the shoe ministry. And we took sneakers for every missionary that was in the, it didn't matter to me who they were there for. As long as they were there for Jesus. Right. And that's the only thing that was important to me. And we took shoes, and we had a meal, had 2, at the Nate Saint house. House that Nate Saint built, and that's where they lived. And that's where the plane was housed, right out front. And we were in that house, and we served a meal to all the missionaries at lunch and one at dinner. And then we washed their feet and put brand new sneakers on. And many of the missionaries told me, they said, you have no idea how many times our children's and our sneakers are repaired by a local shoesmith because we cannot get the same quality as the States. And we took them all Nikes and Adidas and the upper end sneakers, and we do that every year. Every year. We've done it for the orphanage, we've done it for the missionaries, we've done it for several others. And so these are just something that part of our trip that we'll do. But this time, we went back to the Nate Saint house and we were in the kitchen. And none of that has changed. The kitchen and the radio room is not changed from when Nate Saint was there. All their stuff is in there. It's still the same. And we were in the kitchen where the ladies heard the first news about their husband, if you watch the video. The first news that they heard about their husband was sitting in that kitchen. And I was standing there with Chet Williams, the missionary to the Warani, and sitting between me and him on the stool in the kitchen, or on this little seat in the kitchen, was Huey, one of the killers of the man that lived in that house. And the women that killed the husbands of those women that heard the news there, in their house, knowing Jesus. Jesus is in his heart, preaching the gospel to the Warani now, and sharing the gospel. He was there. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it must have bingoed in heaven. And they told me that was the first time that had ever happened. I mean, Huey's been there, but not like with a mission team. And while there, I met Dayuma. Dayuma was the lady that led them in, Elizabeth Elliott and Rachel Singh into the jungle. She passed away last week, last Thursday. And I was so touched by one of the Warani grandsons sent that morning, on Thursday morning, tried to get in touch with me through a text or something, or whatever it is on Facebook. That's what it was, Facebook. And you know those messages? He messaged me on Facebook to tell me that Dayuma had passed away that morning. I was so honored by the fact that I'm nobody, and that they wanted to tell me that Dayuma had passed. Because I got to meet her this time, and I got my picture with her this time. So it's an all God thing, you know. But that's how I know that I go back every year. And I take stuff, I take the missionary stuff. We take 2 bags each. One is we get free, we check in, and then one we have to pay for. Right. And we each one do it, and all of both bags that we take with us, for the most part, is stuff that we're taking to the missionaries there in the field. Stuff that they need, because they can't get it sent to them because it'd be stolen. Much of the stuff would be stolen. They can get letters and stuff like that, but they can't get, and weeks later, but they'll get them, but they can't get things sent to them, and we take them in. And we, whatever it is, I took 2 airplane tires this time for a plane that flies in and out of the jungle. I know 2 pilots that are bush pilots. One works for MAF, and one is a local, has his own airplane, and he flies people in and out of the jungle every day for medical needs and whatnot. These are guys that land those little planes inside the jungle, whatever little strip they can find, just like Nate Saint did along that beach that day. Right. So this is just a little bit of the story, and you can look at this stuff, you can touch this stuff. It's stuff that's made by them. And it's just a blessing to have, and I just share this with you. And please just be careful with the spears, because they are sharp at the ends. They do sharpen them, but they're there for you to enjoy. But if you have any questions about the area, about Shell or about the Waranis, I'm not an expert. There's still a lot of our problems going on there in the jungle. If you know anything about the Waranis, they're broken up into 3 different sects. They're all Waranis, but they have 3 different parts of the jungle. And there's 2 parts they're pretty calm. I mean, one's of course where Yui is, one where's Menkai, and they're pretty calm. But then there's a section down below that if you walk in, you won't walk out. You'll be carried out because they want no parts of the outside world, and they are Warani. And last March a year ago, another tribe come in and killed 2 of their leaders and kidnapped 2 children right after we were there, and it became a battleground. The Waorani later on retaliated, killing hundreds of people in the jungle and leaving them. They're not nice people. So, and they retaliated. And Chet and some of the others met with the government because they asked them to, and they said, what can we do? And Chet just told them the way it was, you can do nothing. You need to leave them alone. Because they have a pact with the government of Ecuador. You leave us alone, we leave you alone. We want nothing from you. We don't want no medical help. We don't want nothing. And that's the way they like it. But they're primitive, wild people. If it hadn't been for the missionaries and all these men and these ladies that went down there and gave themselves for that work, if it hadn't been for them, they would have probably been killed off by now, because they were killing each other within the family, and they would have probably all been extinct by now. But God spared it, and this is all a God thing. So, yes. If you have any questions, please ask, and I'll be here to help you in any way I can. Okay? Yes.
Oh, I haven't read the book. I just heard about this really a couple months ago. I must have been under a rock or something.
No.
But what precipitated the attack on the women's husbands?
Well,
and is that tribe like two tribes, believers and non-believers?
No, at the time they were all non-believers.
Non-believers.
Yeah, and that's why these missionaries were there. And they were trying to reach out. They had heard about these tribes living in the jungle, but they did not know where they were or how they existed. And Nate Singh had a plane, and he would fly over the jungle trying to see any sights of life. And they saw it one day, and they saw him out walking and found out where the village was. And they would fly over, and Nate Singh, in that video, you'll see me holding a basket at the Nate Singh house. It's the actual basket that they would lower out of the plane. And he came up with this idea, him or Jim or one of them came up with this idea. If you lower a basket out of a plane that's flying and put that plane in a circular motion, just going around and around in the same direction all the time, and lower that basket out, it could go straight down. And so they would get up here above the village, and they'd circle that village, and then the other, Jim Elliott or someone, would lower the basket out with food, gifts, and whatever, and that's how they befriended them and came to first contact. And they would take the stuff out of the basket, and eventually they started putting stuff back in as gifts to go back. And they put in a parrot, and some other things, and they would pull it up, and they would take the gifts back to the shell where they lived and cherish them, of course. But the basket's still at the Nate Singh house, one of them anyway. And one of our duties when we go there every time is one of my requirements is that we clean the Nate Singh house. We thoroughly clean it inside and out, because I think that's heartwarming for our people that go on the team. And they like it, so they get the Nate Singh house clean. And that's one of our jobs when we go there. And that's how they befriended. Then when he found the landing strip, you can see it in the movie, he found this place along the river that they would fly over and throw flour and stuff out and see how hard it was. Then he thought he could land the plane. He landed the plane there. And they set up camp, and these two ladies and a man came out of the jungle, one of the natives, and they spent the day with them. And they were just overwhelmed, you know. And they were just thought this is the greatest thing they ever lived. And so they would go and they would share everything that day with them, and even took one of the males up in ride in the plane. And he almost jumped out. They had to grab him, pull him back in. When he went over to the village, he thought he could just step right out, you know, but he couldn't. And so they befriended them, and they were there waiting for the next contact. Well, the next contact, the ladies came across on the other side of the river, and the men saw them, and they ran to them, of course, to welcome them. And when they did, the men came up behind them, Yui, Mankind, and these others came up behind them and speared them to death, leaving them. I mean, they were unmerciful. But they did it because when they went back to the village, they told the all the villagers, Menkai and you and all of them, that these people were out to hurt them. They lied. And it became a lie is what forced them to retaliate and kill. And so, you know, it just didn't do that back then. But one thing about it, if you read the story, or talk about the story, or look at the videos, they talk about an incident there on the beach that day. And when Elizabeth Elliot and Rachel Saint went back and befriended them and lived with them, they would play music. And it would be gospel music they'd be playing. And the missionary and the natives said, asked them what kind of music that was. And they said, it's heavenly music. Well, the guys that had did all the killing said, could not believe it, because on that day that they were being killed and being speared, they saw a great light and they heard heavenly music there in the jungle that day. And the only thing that they can say, it was God.
That's right.
You know, that did it. And even the natives themselves could not believe, you know, what they were hearing. You know, but they didn't know what it was. You know, they thought it was something they did. You know, so, you know, but it wasn't. It was a God thing. But these are marvelous people. I just love them to death. I think they're marvelous people, and they still got a long way to go. So please pray for them. But yes, that answered your question?
Yeah, but now the ones that say they don't want anything to do with anybody,
Yes.
now that's still part of the same tribe.
It's part of the same tribe, but they don't have anything to do with each other.
Okay,
You know, the wild people will stay in their area.
okay.
This tribe, this family members will stay here, and this man, you know, they stay in their own
So
little.
they wouldn't come in and attack the,
No, not unless it was something retaliation type thing.
yeah.
No, they wouldn't. No. But I mean, they're fierce. I've seen pictures of what they leave behind, and of people, and they won't put one spear in you. They'll put about 40 in you, and they'll leave the spears there in them in order so people know who did it.
Well, how about the two children? Do they use?
They found them.
Oh.
They found them. They got them back. One is in the hospital at present, and one is back with the family.
So they didn't take them like to use as human sacrifices?
No, they didn't sacrifice them, no, but they would use them in other bad ways. You know, they are, you know, you got to understand that they're primitive. And age thing does not matter there. You know, that's one of Patty Sue's problems, is when the children get 13 and 14, and this is just now becoming apparent, because they're just now, she's only been there like 12 years. So they're raising these children, and most of them are girls, and they're getting to 12 and 13 years old, and they think they should have a man.
Yeah.
And they don't understand why no one's letting them. You know, you understand what I mean? And I'm being sensitive, but it's a big problem, because children there think different than our children do. Yes, ma'am.
Is the hospital, I'm not sure if I remember correctly, is Rimmer Memorial down there, hospital?
Yes, the hospital that is in Shell was a mission hospital,
Yes.
but it closed in December.
And they used to have a radio station,
Yes, they did.
HCTV.
Exactly, you're absolutely right. It's no longer there. What happened? I got the news in August or September of last year. I got the news that the hospital was closing, and effective December, because they run out of funds. But I think it was more mismanaged money than really run out. But now, nevertheless, that was a mission hospital. I've been to the hospital. The first year I was there, I visited it. It's a beautiful little hospital. It has a surgical room, has incubators for babies that are born premature. I mean, it had all these things. And you could go in and see a doctor for $5. And he'd take care of you, give you medicine. And so, and they would tell us, if any of us get sick, just come here, we'll take care of you for free. But the Ecuadorian government, what happened was they started getting into this free health care, And this free healthcare is not working.
I don't know why that is.
That's political, but that's okay, 'cause that's the way I feel. And it's not working there. And so now there's a doctor that worked at that hospital by the name of Dr. Wolf. And he's trying to buy the hospital and reopen it. But of course, that's another funds. You're talking
Right.
millions of dollars to get it going. But he's working, he's getting there. So we need to pray for Dr. Wolf as well. He'll get that hospital back open. But that was Patty Sue's was relied upon that hospital. Now she has to go to Puyo, to the government hospital, and let them check out the children to see if they, especially the ones that are in need of surgical. Now, Patty Sue has a missionary nurse that's full-time at the house, and so, you know, she's a marvelous lady, love her to death, and she's a good nurse, and she takes care of the children the best way, but she's not a doctor. So, you know, but that's the problem with that hospital. It did close in December. So, any other questions? I know I'm taking up a lot of your time.
No,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah,
That's
that's
good.
right.
But if you do, if you think of anything, please look at this stuff when we're done, and feel free to look at it. It's there because God wanted it to be, and so you know, everything is a God's thing as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And we are going back. Did I say January 10th through the 24th? Didn't know if I said it or not. But we take in as many that wants to go. But it's a working trip. I must tell you, we work. We work. This time we work at Casa de Fe. We're building a wall. They're putting a fence all around the property because Casa de Fe's desire is to be self-supported. They built 2 ponds, 2 fish ponds. They start the fish out little in one pond, then they transfer them to the bigger pond, then they eat them. And they had about 200 fish. Somebody went around the backside of the jungle and came in one night and took all their fish. And so they're having to put up a fence now. But things there when you build, we're working on a block wall, and not a block wall, stone wall, and the rocks are carried, the mortar's carried, everything's carried, sand's carried, dumped right there. You shovel it in, you mix it up, and you pour a bag of concrete in, then pour it in the wheelbarrow and pour it into the form that these guys make, and they smooth it out. Everything's hand done, but they need help, and you'll work yourselves to death when you go. It's not all about the children, but what it is, but it's not seen. We'll see them, but and we'll get to interact with them, but most of it's work, labor work, that we help them with. So that's the January 10th, January 24th. All right? Okay,
Thanks.